Hello and welcome to the Big Time Strength Podcast, a podcast featuring small school strength coaches making the big time where they're at. I am your host, Gage Rozier. I appreciate you tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Hey guys, today we have a conversation with Coach Jordan Fark, the Director of Strength Conditioning at McKendree University in Southern Illinois. I'm really excited to have Coach on because he is working with more athletes than anyone I know. He's training over 800 Division II collegiate athletes with a limited staff, and we get into a lot in this episode about how he goes about doing that, how he gets his staff on the same page, how he organizes training to make it all work. And it's awesome stuff, and he's doing a great job there at McKendree. We play them in our conference here at William Jewell, so they're always a tough team across all sports, just does an amazing job. We also talk a lot about team camaraderie, training environment, building leaders, how he does that, some simple, practical advice he gives on how to go about doing that. We talk about resources, and we also talk about his level system. When a freshman comes in, what is he doing with them? How is he going to progress them? And across the 4 stages throughout their career at McKendree. And to do that with 800 athletes and limited staff is really hard. And he talks a little bit about how he goes about doing that. And he's an amazing coach. He's an even better guy. And just a great episode. I really hope you get a lot out of it. Please reach out to him if you have any questions. And I hope you enjoy this episode. If you do, please subscribe, share, like, all that on all the podcast outlets, and leave a comment. Let us know how we're doing. And again, if you have any recommendations on coaches, please let us know. With that being said, let's get to today's episode. Coach Jordan Fark. Hey, Coach, I really appreciate you coming on with us on Big Time Strength. Why don't you get us started by explaining a little bit of your background, kind of your journey through strength conditioning, as well as what you got going on there at McKendree?
Sure. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity. Kind of a little background on me. Currently, I am the Director of Strength Conditioning at McKendree University. We are a Division II school in Southern Illinois. Prior to this, I owned and operated a sports performance facility for a couple years in Nashville, Illinois. It's even in Southern Illinois, I should say. Did that for a couple years. Learned some great training lessons through that. And then prior to that, I was a intern and then I volunteered a little bit at St. Louis University with Scott Charlin and Eric Shork over there. Great experience. I couldn't have asked for a better mentor in Scott Charlin. He's taught me so much, and I'm forever grateful for everything he has done for me. But I would say my background probably isn't as extensive as some other coaches that have been on the podcast, but I've definitely learned a lot from the short amount of time that I have in strength conditioning thus far.
Yeah, so what you got going on McKendree there? I mean, I know you're working with lots of athletes. Why don't you give our listeners a little bit of an update on what you're working with there?
Yeah, so at McKendree here, we have a tremendous amount of athletes. It's 800 plus every year. We work with about 31 sports here, and every team trains with us in the weight room. We're grateful that a lot of our teams are having success and are doing a great job. A lot of our athletes, majority of our athletes and all of our sport coaches have bought into our system. So we have great working relationships with both our sport coaches and our athletes, as well as our athletic training staff. And Lance Ringhausen over here is our head athletic trainer. We have a very close relationship on, just keeping up to date, which, you've heard some departments butt heads with the athletic training staff, and over here I think we run very smoothly for how many athletes that we have working in both of our areas. So a lot of athletes, but we're pushing them hard. They have great attitudes coming in. We have to push that culture daily, but it's definitely an interesting day in the weight room every single day.
Yeah, I bet that keeps you busy. So
yes, very busy.
Yeah, with that many athletes, what staff you do have. Why don't you give us a little background of your staff, and then how do you evaluate them? How do you train them? How you got to be on the same page training that many teams and
Yeah.
athletes. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So my staff consists of myself. I have a full-time assistant. He is also we have powerlifting as a sport here. He's the powerlifting coach, both for males and females. But he helps out. He takes 5 or 6 teams on his own. Along with that, we have 2 GAs that just do a tremendous job. They're working hard. They're working just as hard as we are every day on top of their grad work. And then we take on interns primarily through the school here, but we have had some outside interns come in as well. Through kind of the evaluation process, a lot of my coaches, we'll kind of go through. We have a strength conditioning handbook, I guess, and through that gives what our goals are, what kind of attitude we need to bring in every single day as we come to the weight room. We're coaching positivity every single day, and then along that I have a kind of a map out of what I want each of our training sessions to look like. So it's a template. I want a great thorough warm up. I want 3 or 4 core exercises. I want the SAQ work. About 10 minutes every day. Hip knee ankle power, hip knee ankle strength, upper body push, upper body pull. And then so these are very general categories. Within those categories, our coaches can kind of plug and play with exercises that we have in a main exercise selection sheet. So that exercise selection sheet just ensures that the whole staff knows exactly what that exercise is, how to coach it, what the progressions are, what the regressions are. So in the event of somebody being absent from the staff for any reason with travel or anything, that another coach can kind of just pick it up and go. We don't have to start asking, okay, I don't really know this exercise. What is this? So we are on the same page. Through the evaluation process, I would say it's kind of happening daily. If I see anything that I think a coach needs to work on, or anything that's kind of going on, I try to make a note of it, bring them in after the athlete session. I don't want to bring it up during the session, of course, unless it's potential to harm somebody. But after the training session, I never want to correct a coach in front of the athletes. I want that kind of be private, and then watch them kind of develop and interpret what I was telling them and kind of see where they go with it.
Well, that's cool. I'm interested in the kind of having a template of what you want your day to look like, and then giving those coaches a lot of freedom, but with boundaries. And and that's interesting. I might have to reach out to you at some point and pick your brain on that a little bit more, because I think that's vital. As a staff, especially with that many athletes, you got to be on the same page, and it sounds like you got it kind of all flowing there really well. So
absolutely,
cool.
Yeah. It's flowing as well as it can right now, and we're just and we make adjustments, and if somebody goes to a clinic and learns something new, we want to kind of meet as a staff and put that into that exercise selection sheet, make sure everybody is on the same page, as knowing what it's for, and also how to coach it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So something I'm interested in as well, and I think a lot of our listeners are as well, is the training environment. So how do you, what are some unique ways maybe that you optimize training environment?
Yeah, so our training environment is interesting. Now we give with our freshmen kind of go through a level 1 program, and it's very basic. They go through a lot of progressions, regressions. We're not on a barbell for a while, but when everybody's kind of in here going, technique it's always being coached, but at some point the athletes kind of get a little bit of not freedom. We're constantly coaching them, but they know what the technical cues are. They know how to be proficient in the technique of the lift. So, as you walk in the door, our speakers are going to be blasted to the max. Our coaches have high energy. We're walking around the room, coaching. Another unique thing that we kind of did, and this actually came from our head football coach, he kind of brought this idea to the table whenever I started here, was we kind of go on a cadence. We go on set numbers. So, we'll put the group through the warm-up, we'll put them through the core work. Once they get to the rack, say we're doing cleans first, all their numbers are kind of figured out for them on the sheet, what intensity do we want them at for that day. I give them about a 2-minute setup period, and then we start the first one on a set number. So I'm just going to call out ready, set number. The whole team is going to yell 1. And I'll say ready, begin, and everybody kind of begins on that cadence, and that whole group at that rack is going to work through. And what it does is it creates a camaraderie in the groups. It kind of challenges everybody to kind of have that high energy for the hour and a half that we have them. And there's a lot of shouting going on, a lot of, but it's all great. It's a great training environment. And then once they kind of get the hang of it, I just give that over to a leader of the day. So you got the set numbers today. That leader is going to take ownership of that training for that session. And I think it really kind of creates a cool environment for our athletes.
That's awesome. I've never heard that before. I might try that tomorrow, and it might fail miserably for me.
Yeah, it took a while to incorporate because not everybody really understood what I was telling them at the beginning, but it took probably a week to get. But once they got it, I mean, it's pretty cool. Now that works for the maybe half of our teams. Maybe
Sure.
Half of our teams have that mentality of shouting and screaming. With some teams, they just don't have that mentality, and they want to come in here and work, and they're just kind of. So we don't do it with every team, but if it's one of those days that I need the intensity up, I need the energy up in the room, we'll incorporate that, and it's done great things for our athletes.
Say, do you think it's been beneficial too, just to get them locked in on that set and everybody's on the same page, and it's like, all right, once that set number is called, it's a go time? I mean, do you think there's a little bit of that with it too?
I think so. Yeah, it's kind of like a gun going off. It's just like that. It's that. Okay, time to work. It's cool to see the athletes. If we're doing some maximal type intensity squats or anything like that, you can see them kind of whenever the first man's up and they're getting ready at the bar, you can kind of see them getting jacked up a little bit and getting their energy up, and it helps them out in the long run. It helps their set. It helps their teammates are screaming at them, shouting at them, and it's a good environment.
Yeah, that's great. You talked about handing that responsibility over to your leaders. How do you develop those leaders? Are there specific ways you're doing that? Let's talk about that a little bit.
I would say, yeah, a lot of it, you can kind of identify who has the leadership traits, as they kind of go through the years. And then what you need to do is just or what we do is kind of try to exploit those. If I can kind of see a hint of it in their sophomore year, in their junior year, I'm going to kind of take a little bit more out of them. Okay, give me, you got this group today. You're in charge of these 3 racks. I need this intensity up. You got these guys. So giving them the ownership, just of maybe not just their rack, but maybe a set of 3 racks. You have that kind of corner over here. This is on you, and you can kind of just give them the opportunity to exploit some of those leadership traits. Kind of present them to you. And some guys do great with it. Some guys are kind of shy with it. And you got to keep trying. But primarily, whenever it clicks, and then they're going to be leaders for the next 2 years. You just got to get that out of them and show them what that feels like. You gotta walk the walk, you gotta talk the talk. Those type of things are just kind of giving them ownership of it. I think giving them ownership of the training program is huge. Kind of letting them. It's much easier if they can kind of manage the room while I go around and coach.
Yeah.
It's easier on me as a coach. So those are some ways. We also have some. There's certain times of the year where I'll pick out player 5s, and I forget where I got this from, but where they just stand up in front of the team and give a 5-minute talk to their team about what it means for them to be on that team, what their background is like, and then they also have to present something challenging that they've been through outside of sports in their life. And everybody kind of has that thing, but it puts them in kind of an uncomfortable situation to talk about it, but the team itself grows as a family when you realize, okay, everybody's got some stuff. Everybody kind of has things going on in their lives that we just need to start supporting each other, as a whole. So those are kind of some little areas that we kind of get into, with developing leaders and developing the bond of the team.
Yeah, I love that idea about the player fives. How often do you do that? Is it once a week or a month or?
Yeah, usually if we've done it a lot during our summertime where things are a little bit relaxed with class schedules, everything like that. So there'll be a time maybe I'll pick out Thursdays. On Thursdays we're going to do player fives, and I'll just pick out 2 or 3 individuals at the end of the session that they're just going to stand up and talk. So it's really about a once a week thing. Whenever we get into our in-season stuff, it's probably maybe once every other week type thing where they just stand up, and you just kind of have to program, make sure you have enough time so everybody's not running out the door trying to get to class or trying to get to a meal or anything like that.
Right. Yeah, it's a chance for you to learn about those kids a little bit too, and I think,
absolutely.
You
learn
cool.
Some things that you would never think that
right.
So-and-so athlete has been through this, and now look at the success they've had in their life, coming up to this point. They're playing college football or college soccer or whatever their endeavor is. They've broken through, and now they're successful, and it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's you don't work with that many athletes and not have some challenges. So what are some of the challenges you got going on there, and or how are you overcoming them?
Challenges are all over the place. So I would say first off, scheduling of that many athletes is one of our biggest challenges. We don't, we're a smaller school, so we don't have that many sections, given to our athletes to take, sections in terms of classes. They don't have that. So maybe they're a junior, senior, and they have to take this class at this time, but unfortunately we have this training at this time. I have to reschedule their training session around those class schedules. And that's probably one of the biggest challenges I have in scheduling every semester, getting on, looking up their individual schedules of, 100, 150 athletes is it takes a lot of time, so that's a big challenge. I would say, kind of having that mindset as they walk in the door and never letting I want that positive go-getter attitude every time they step in the door, and having those, there's a lot of different attitudes that can walk in through the front door. So you always got to be cognizant of that. You got to be able to crush that right as they walk in the door, so that it doesn't affect the rest of the training day. And that's hard because with 800 plus athletes, there's gonna be some people with some bad days. They just bombed a test, or they just broke up with a boyfriend, girlfriend. Their stress levels are already high. So sometimes I just need to bring them to my office, see what's going on, because if you know your athletes enough, you kind of know when they're not right that day.
Right.
And a lot of times you got to kind of counsel them. You got to kind of talk them through it. You got to, it might be best for the whole team if that athlete just, hey, why don't you take today, come in tomorrow, we'll make up this workout, but we don't want this to affect the rest of the workout. And unfortunately, that's going to happen sometimes, and you just got to kind of work around that. There's more challenges for sure. I would say at small schools here, our biggest challenge is getting proper nutrition.
Yeah.
Is huge. I have athletes do surveys. What can we do better for you? We are a service community, so taking those leaders and kind of having them, write down what they want more of, and a lot of them put nutrition. There's multiple times where athletes can go. They practice in the morning, then they're going to have class for a little while, then they're going to have strength conditioning, and then they're going to have meetings. And unfortunately, some of our athletes aren't eating until 3-4 p.m. And they just need to. We educate, we try to, but we just need to give them more opportunities to be successful in the nutrition area. And that's probably our biggest challenge. something that could really take our training full circle, I think, is increasing our nutritional needs. We don't have training tables or anything like that, so it's much more of a challenge at this level. Especially with the time restraints that are placed on our athletes to get to class, get to meetings, get to practice, get to weights, all those type of things. So those are some highlights. I mean, obviously we have more and little things come up every day, but those are some bigger issues that we have.
We're in the same boat on nutrition. We do the same thing. You kind of ask our graduating seniors, try to survey everyone about what they want more and how we can help their experience better. And about 50% of them say something about nutrition. And man, I'm like, I know we're trying to educate you, but it costs money. We just don't have it right now. And
we would love to give you all the products, as you leave the gym every day, but unfortunately, there's those athletes who are going to take the information that you give them and they're going to do it because that's the athlete they are. There's some that are, you give them a piece of paper and they left it in the weight room before they even left the door.
Right.
So you can give them a whole packet of what, we even give recovery stuff out as packets. And there's been multiple days that athletes have left these in here. I'm like, okay, I worked pretty hard on that. And now you're leaving it in here. But, so that's definitely a challenge as well.
Yeah. You mentioned a little bit earlier about your freshmen starting on like a level 1 program. So how do you progress your athletes through your program over 4 years?
Sure. We are level based, I would say, for sure. Our level 1s, as they come in, we never put anybody on a barbell first. They have to go through a progression of, I need to see some proper push-ups. I need to see some proper pull-ups. For females, it's more of an eccentric-based pull-up, but I need to see some proper scap traction, I guess, kind of going on with those. And then we goblet squat. We goblet squat like crazy with our level 1s. And I actually, we've run plenty of Jim Wendler's 5-3-1 through ours, and he kind of had a system, a level 1 system they did at the high school level of doing goblet squats, 50-pound goblet squats for females or 75-pound goblet squats for males, that we've taken and kind of we assess them through that. And once they get through that proper kind of movements with those exercises, we go into like a starting strength by Rippetoe type program. I don't know if you're familiar with the starting strength, but pretty well you're starting with an empty barbell.
Yeah.
And you're doing 5 sets of 5. And then each workout you kind of just progress with weight. So an empty barbell after they've done all the goblets is pretty light, so we're kind of resetting them. But now we're hammering technique on our main lifts, our main barbell lifts. From there, that's kind of whenever they progress into our level 3s, level 4s, and that's going to kind of be based on what that athlete needs at that time, what that sport needs at that time, and kind of making our subtle adjustments accordingly. But we'll go into we've done. I'm really starting to fall in love with triphasic training, Cal Dietz's system. Took me forever to read the book, for sure. But, we're playing around with that right now. We're still playing around with the 5-3-1. If we need more volume early off season, we kind of do a juggernaut, Chad Wesley Smith's juggernaut scheme. But it's really assessing them based on the season and kind of what we need more of, depending on where we go forward whenever we get into our level 3s, level 4s. And that's kind of how we progress it. I would say out of our systems, that level 1 is the utmost importance. They have to move well first before they progress into barbell training at that point.
How long do you have them in that level 1?
Really, that's going to be dependent on them. So, and that's kind of the hardest part is once we that level 1 can last 2 weeks, it can last 2 months.
Right.
They have to prove to me that they're ready for a level 2. And I think that's the hardest part of whenever we're starting that level 2 is we have so many athletes starting at different times that there's got to be a better system out there. I just haven't figured it out yet, to get them there. But a lot of our smaller teams, they'll kind of end on that level 1 together. Women's volleyball last year, women's soccer, our freshmen, those groups, they kind of ended around the same week of that level 1, so it was an easy progression. Whenever you have a bunch of football guys kind of doing those things, that's a little bit different. Some athletes have a very extensive background in strength conditioning or weight training. Some were 3-sport athletes and they barely lifted a weight, unfortunately. And you just kind of have those athletes, so they're going to take a little bit longer to get through that level 1.
Yeah, it's kind of like what we were talking about before we started recording. And at a small school, that's one of my biggest challenges is you got so many guys that come at different times and are progressing quicker than others that with a limited staff and that many athletes, it's really hard to progress each one accordingly and keep it all organized and make it work. So I'm always interested on how guys are doing it. And it seems like you got a pretty good system there.
We're progressing every year with our system. I would say it's not ironed out yet, but we're doing better every year with kind of seeing what works and what doesn't, and kind of replacing what doesn't with something that we think might be better. So
sure. So you're talking about getting better. What are some of the stuff you're excited about learning and improving on this next year?
Myself.
Yeah.
This is us as a department. I think we could always do better with our speed, agility, quickness, and I think the next year I'm gonna put a higher emphasis on that. I think we do a great job with conditioning. I think we do a great job with our weight work. We do a great job with our injury prevention stuff that we do with again our progressions and regressions with different things. I think the time restraint that we have. Sometimes you only got 10 minutes of that entire day to get some SAQ work done. I would like to become more efficient and kind of dive a little bit deeper into the SAQ. We do our acceleration drills. We do the drills. I think I can become a better coach in that area for that stuff. And I just need to reach out to I've reached out to our track and field coaches here, and they got tremendous ideas. They know how to do it, but they also have an hour and a half every day with their athletes to do it. So I got to get the efficiency part of it down.
Right.
I went to see Lee Taft last year. He was at a Butler University clinic. I think I would love to reach out to him a little bit more and kind of pick his brain on things, because he's one of the most efficient coaches I've ever seen when I'm watching some of his sessions. So different areas I need to look into is definitely our speed, agility, quickness department. I would also I'm starting to kind of I'm really getting into recovery, those type of protocols, and kind of the CNS and all those type of things. I'll be diving into that in the next year as well. Just kind of don't know my resources on that one yet.
So with recovery, do you do any monitoring as far as like RPE or anything like that with your athletes to just?
So we did some HRV testing. Now this was all on like an app last year. So you can kind of, there's plenty of research out there saying that's not accurate. But what it did do is it showed me some athletes that, everybody was doing it in camp last year. So I had women's soccer doing it. I had football doing it. I had women's volleyball. That HRV stuff, it's very interesting. I just don't know how much emphasis I can put on it yet without really getting into the technology part of it. So we're constantly monitoring just by watching our athletes and knowing our athletes. Whenever you know an athlete, you know when they're run down. You know whenever they're, Buddy Morris gave a presentation and he talked about when the athletes walk through the door, if they're just talking constantly, they're ready to train. If they walk in the door and it's just crickets, you can't hear anything, you probably need to modify something or change something for that day. And that's something that I've, in the last couple of years, I've really taken into account in terms of training. Whenever I program, I'm programming that they're going to be 100% that day. So there's a lot of days that, we change our programming based on what the athletes present us as they walk through the door.
Yeah. Be adaptable. It's very important for sure.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, man, I had to do it yesterday. I mean, our athletes, they were coming off a break and they weren't ready for what I had on on the sheet. So I had to take some stuff out, and it's just part of it, you know. Adapting to what the athletes are displaying to you is huge.
Yeah. What are some of your favorite professional development resources, whether that's a book, articles, videos, podcasts, whatever it might be?
Sure. I would say here in the last year, I've really podcasts have been a lot. I've gotten into podcasts in the last year. Let's say that. So as a strength coach, you listen to music 12, 14 hours a day. So my commute's about a half hour to and from work. With that commute, I'm just going to plug into a podcast. So some of those podcasts, Ron McKendree's Iron Game Chalk Talk is big. You know, I listen to that almost every time a new episode comes out. Joe DeFranco's Industrial Strength Show is big too. I follow a lot of Joe DeFranco and everything he does. That's another big one. So, you know, as far as those podcasts, that's kind of, what I'm listening to and from work. Books-wise, I'm trying to look through. The newest one I got was The Mechanics of Sprinting and Hurling by Ralph Mann. It's a great resource. Definitely a lot of information that we're definitely taking into account and kind of learning. You know, if that's something I need to work on in the next year, that's something I need to read up on every day. So that's sitting on my desk here. Conscious coaching was huge for our staff. That was one of our staff reads last year, and the way information is presented in that book was tremendous. And I mean, it really changed the way we kind of presented information to athletes, the way we kind of coached athletes, and it's been for the better. So those are probably some of the main resources, you know, I can give you right now without giving you every book that's sitting on my desk here. But that's kind of what we're looking at is what we've gone into. Of course, we Journal of Strength Conditioning Research. I still get the hard copies. I spend the extra little bit to get the hard copies. I'm better with bending the pages over and kind of resorting back to that. But every time one of those shows up, I kind of, flip through it and see what's out there.
Well, awesome, Coach. This has been great. You've got some great stuff for us, and I'm going to put some of this into practice tomorrow with our guys. So
all right, sounds great.
Yeah,
well,
this has been awesome.
Yep.
Let's finish with our 5 quick questions here, and then we'll wrap it up. Sound good?
Okay. Yep, absolutely.
All right. What is your favorite office snack?
Oh, favorite office snack. Right now it is carrots and peanut butter, and that's something that's kind of been a staple for the last couple months. But we get the full carrots from Schnucks down the road, and I got this big jar of peanut butter that I'm snacking on throughout the day. That's probably it.
That sounds really good right now, actually. It sounds pretty
yeah.
Good. All right. Favorite caffeine source?
I would say it's still black coffee. I'm a straight coffee guy, and unfortunately, I'm drinking it all day long.
Yeah.
So that's my favorite. I think I'm not sensitive to caffeine, but taking too many milligrams of it at one time, I get a little jittery, and I usually my energy's pretty high, so I don't need it ramped up anymore. I can be a little bit more. I can judge it on how much coffee I have throughout the day. So I like the steady stream instead of the one hit.
Yeah. All right. What's your favorite workout playlist?
Favorite workout playlist? That's going to depend on what the workout consists of that day. This is going to sound a little. One is Disturbed. Anything Disturbed, I'm usually rocking and rolling with it. Those are usually going to be some heavier days. That's my. Those are my high output days. If it's a lower output day, this is going to sound weird and might date me a little bit, or something that my dad always listened to was Meatloaf. And Meatloaf, do you know Meatloaf?
Not really, no.
Not really. Okay, so his Pandora station, you need to check it out. It's got a lot of good music. It's not going to get you all jacked up, ready to squat big, but it's going to be some high quality music, and that's usually what I'm listening to. And my staff, don't worry, my staff doesn't know it either, but they know if I'm training, it's a low day, and I want to listen to it, we're going to listen to it. So
I'll check it out. Yeah, I'll check it out. All right, you got 15 minutes to train. What are you doing?
So I thought about there's a lot of days that I got 15 minutes to train, so I got to pick what poison I want here. But right now I'm going to say it's going to be a back squat and a box jump, supersetted back and forth. We're probably going to hit 5 sets of 5, ramping up on that squat. Sets 3 on the box jump. I'm going back and forth until I can't anymore. I might hit a burn set or best set on the last one, and that's going to be it.
Nice. That's plenty. That's good.
Yep.
All right, last one.
Yep.
A small school coach who is killing it and deserves a shout out.
Sure. Small school coach. This is going to be kind of in our conference here, but Steve Barrick at UIndy, our University in Indianapolis. He's doing big things. I reach out to him all the time, and every time I do, I'm going to learn something different. But with the success the University of Indianapolis has across multiple sports, he's doing something right. So that's definitely a big one that he's doing great things over there.
Yeah, they got it going on there for sure. They're doing some good things. So.
Yep. Yes,
right.
He is.
Yeah,
so.
Coach, it's been awesome having you. I've got your email and Twitter on here that I'll put on the show notes. Is there any particular way if people want to reach out to you prefer?
Either one, Twitter or email. Either one's going to work. I'm probably both of them are going to get a reply. It might take me a day or two, but both of them will get a reply sooner or later. A lot of times we're rock and rolling and don't always get to all the emails by the end of the day, but I'll get back to them as soon as possible.
Awesome. Well, Coach, again, I appreciate it. This was great. I really appreciate you coming on and spending the time, and good luck the rest of the summer and this fall.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for having me on.